Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and felt completely invisible? Like no one noticed you? You smiled? You tried to be nice? Maybe you even talked more than usual, but nothing landed. Meanwhile, someone else barely said a word, and everyone was drawn to them. That's not luck, that's not good looks. That's silent attraction, and it's something you can learn, because the truth is the most powerful kind of presence doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from mastering a few subtle habits that change how people experience you without you saying much at all. If you've ever felt like you had to perform to be liked, if you've been overthinking how to impress people, or constantly second-guessing your worth in a room, I want you to stop right now. You're not here to be louder. You're here to be more intentional, more aware, more powerful in your silence. And today I'm going to show you how to be silently attractive, how to walk into any room, sit in any conversation, and be the kind of person who draws others in, not by talking more, but by embodying quiet confidence and emotional intelligence. Let's get into it. Presence is power, and most people underestimate just how much presence can shape their reality. We're talking about something deeper than appearance, louder than words, and more unforgettable than charm. When you walk into a room, your presence is the first thing that arrives. It's the energy you carry, the unspoken message you send before you even open your mouth. It's not about trying to stand out. It's about being so grounded, so certain in who you are that people naturally notice you. Now, here's the catch. Presence doesn't come from being loud, bold, or flashy. It comes from alignment. When you are aligned with your values, when you are grounded in self-respect, when you move with intention, people feel it. They can't always explain it, but they sense something different about you. Something calm, something sure, something powerful. Too many people try to compensate for a lack of internal presence with external noise. They talk too much, laugh too loudly, or constantly try to prove their worth through achievements or validation. But the ones who command true respect, the ones who are remembered after they leave the room, are the ones who own their space without needing to fill it with unnecessary chatter. You don't have to be silent, but you must be centered. Presence is about how you carry yourself. It's in your posture, your breathing, the way you look someone in the eyes without flinching or needing to over-explain yourself. It's in how slowly or deliberately you move, how comfortably you take up space. Not in an arrogant way, but in a way that says, I belong here, and not because someone gave you permission, but because you decided. And presence doesn't just impact how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. When you walk into a room connected to your breath, rooted in your worth, fully aware of your surroundings, but not hyper-focused on people's reactions to you, something shifts. You're not playing a part, you're being real, and that realness draws people in. It's not the kind of attraction that happens fast and burns out. It's the kind that lingers, the kind that makes people wonder who you are and why they feel different around you. This is why presence is not about perfection. It's not about having the right clothes or saying the right things. It's about embodying something deeper. Authenticity, quiet strength, emotional maturity. It's how you enter a space without needing to compete for attention. Because your energy already speaks for you. You want to develop that kind of presence, start by slowing down, stop rushing. People who move too fast are usually disconnected from the moment. Breathe deeply, feel your feet on the ground, be aware of your body, your thoughts, and your emotions, but don't be consumed by them. You're anchored in the now, you radiate a calm that unsettles insecure people and draws in those who crave stability. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. Presence begins in the mind. If you're constantly judging yourself, second-guessing your worth, or mentally shrinking to make others comfortable, shows people don't need to hear your thoughts. They can read them in your body language. But when you shift that internal script, when you start thinking, I am enough, just as I am, I don't need to perform, I bring value by being real, your energy shifts, and so does the way the world responds to your presence. Also means being fully engaged. When someone speaks to you, be all in. Listen without distraction. Make them feel like they're the only person that matters in that moment. Don't be scanning the room, checking your phone, or planning what you're going to say next. That kind of presence is rare and it's powerful. People are starving for connection. When you offer it through your full attention, you become memorable. And let's not forget one more crucial thing. Silence can be your superpower. You don't have to fill every pause. In fact, when you can sit in silence without feeling awkward, you create space for others to speak, for energy to settle, for deeper conversations to emerge. That's when people start to lean in. That's when they start to feel something different about you. And that's when your silent attractiveness begins to take root. So no, you don't need a spotlight. You don't need to overperform or become someone you're not. What you need is presence. You need to show up fully, breathe deeply, and trust that who you are is more than enough. Because the most magnetic person in the room isn't always the loudest, it's the one who's most at peace with themselves. And when you learn to walk in that kind of presence, you stop chasing attention and start commanding respect. Confidence is one of the most misunderstood traits out there. Most people think confidence is loud, that it's walking into a room and making sure everyone sees you, hears you, and knows how great you are. But real confidence, it's the exact opposite. It's quiet, it's subtle, and it doesn't ask for attention. It commands it simply by existing. When you truly believe in yourself, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You don't need to speak over others or dominate the conversation. You don't need to be the funniest, the smartest, or the loudest. You're not chasing validation because you already own your worth. That kind of quiet confidence is magnetic. People notice it without even realizing what they're noticing. It's in the way you carry yourself, the way you move through the world with purpose, and the way you stay grounded when others get shaken. Think about the people you admire the most. Chances are they're not the ones constantly talking about themselves or bragging about what they've done. They're the ones who show up with presence. They speak when it matters. And when they do, you listen. Because their words carry weight. And the reason their words carry weight is because they're not trying to convince you of anything. They're speaking from a place of certainty, not insecurity. Confidence is trusting yourself when no one is clapping for you. It's doing the right thing when nobody's watching. Walking away from something that doesn't align with your values, even if it costs you approval or attention. It's the quiet knowing that your worth doesn't go up or down based on who likes you or what room you're in. Silent confidence also shows up in how you treat other people. Insecure people, confident people in power. When you're truly secure in who you are, you're not threatened by other people's wins. You don't need to tear anyone down to feel taller. You actually want to see others shine because their light doesn't dim yours. And when people feel that kind of energy from you, drawn to it. They want to be around someone who's solid, someone who's not playing games or trying to prove anything. That creates trust. And trust is rare. One of the most powerful ways to embody silent confidence is through your nonverbal communication. It's the way you walk into a room, not rushing, not shrinking, but grounded. It's how you make eye contact, steady but not aggressive. It's how you hold your posture, relaxed but strong. You don't need to shout your worth. It's written in your body language. Even in conversation, confident people don't rush to fill every silence. They're comfortable with pauses. They let others speak. They don't interrupt because they're not waiting for their turn to talk. They're actually listening. And when they finally speak, it's intentional. You lean in, not because they're demanding your attention, but because they've earned it. Another aspect of silent confidence is emotional regulation. When something goes wrong, when someone criticizes you or challenges you, your reaction says everything. Insecure people get defensive or lash out. Confident people pause. They assess. They don't let one comment or one moment throw off their entire energy. That calm, composed reaction is a signal to everyone around them. I'm not easily shaken. That's deeply attractive because in a world full of chaos, someone who can stay grounded feels safe. And safety is one of the most attractive traits there is. You'll also find that silently confident people aren't chasing spotlight moments. They're not trying to constantly go viral or be seen. They're focused on becoming the kind of person who's consistent behind closed doors. They show up with discipline. They make choices based on long-term vision, not short-term approval. That kind of integrity builds reputation, and reputation speaks louder than any performance ever could. And here's what's wild. When you stop trying to impress people, you actually become more impressive because you've removed the pressure. You're not performing. You're not people-pleasing. You're just being, and that authenticity is powerful. It's rare and people can feel it immediately. Confidence doesn't walk into the room and say, "Look at me." It walks into the room and says, "I belong here," without saying a word. That's the energy you want to cultivate, and you don't get there by pretending. You get there by doing the inner work, by showing up for yourself every single day, keeping your promises to yourself by learning to sit with discomfort, instead of avoiding it by building a life that you're proud of. even if no one else sees it. Because when you live like that, when you are that person, even in silence, people notice. You don't have to chase them. They come to you because you shouted the loudest, but because your energy whispered the truth. I know who I am, and that is more than enough. Most people think being attractive is about being interesting, saying the right thing, telling great stories, being funny, or always having something to add. But the real magnetism, the kind that doesn't fade, comes from being able to listen. I mean, really listen, not the kind of listening where you're just waiting your turn to speak, but the kind that makes people feel seen, heard, and understood. Let's be honest, in a world full of noise, full of people interrupting, shouting over each other, and sharing every thought on social media, silence has become rare. Presence has become rare. When someone actually pays attention, not just nodding along, but staying present in the conversation, it leaves an impact. You don't have to be charming when your attention is sincere. That sincerity is the charm. Most people crave one thing more than attention. They crave connection. Doesn't come from talking the most. It comes from listening, the deepest. Think about the last time someone made you feel like you were the only person in the room. That kind of presence sticks with you, right? You walk away from that interaction thinking, wow, they really got me. That's not a coincidence. That's a skill. And it's one of the most silently attractive habits you can develop. The key is you have to stop rushing in with your story. You have to stop jumping in with a solution every time someone shares a problem. You don't need to relate everything back to yourself. That's not connection, that's competition in disguise. The real skill is sitting back, observing the nuance in someone's words and letting them unfold their truth without pressure, without interruption, without trying to fix or because here's what happens when you do that. You create safety, and people are drawn to what makes them feel safe. There's a certain quiet confidence in someone who doesn't feel the need to dominate the conversation. It signals strength. It shows maturity. When you let others take center stage, even for a few moments, you're telling them, you matter, I'm not in a rush, I'm here. That's attractive, that's rare, and it's powerful. Listening is not passive, it's deeply active. It's observing tone, body language, eye movement, pauses. It's asking questions that go deeper, not surface level stuff like, how's your day? But things like, what's been on your mind lately? Or what are you not saying right now? That level of depth requires emotional presence. And emotional presence is what makes people remember you long after the conversation ends. And let me make something clear. Being a great listener doesn't mean you never speak. It means you choose your words with care. You speak to elevate the conversation, not to hijack it. You reflect back insights, offer validation, leave space for the other person to go further. Most people aren't used to being asked follow-up questions. Most people aren't used to having their thoughts expanded on rules. When you do that, when you dig into their words with curiosity instead of judgment, they open up, and in that moment, they feel a rare form of connection. So why is this habit so silently attractive? Because it breaks a pattern. Most people are stuck in performance mode, but when you show up and simply listen, you disrupt that script. You stop being just another voice in the noise. You become the calm. You become the anchor, and people will begin to crave your presence without knowing exactly why. Think about relationships you value most. I guarantee those people made you feel heard when you were messy, confused, or unsure. They didn't try to fix you. They didn't rush you. They gave you space to be. That's what silent attractiveness is about. It's not about wowing people. It's about witnessing them. There's another layer to this. When you become a better listener, you become more emotionally intelligent. You start to pick up on what people are really reeling beneath the surface. You notice patterns. You sense discomfort even when words sound fine. And when you respond to what's really going on, not just surface level stuff, you build trust, deep, lasting trust. And trust is the foundation of all meaningful relationships, personal or professional. You don't have to be the loudest, funniest, or smartest person in the room to be magnetic. You just need to care enough to truly listen. When you do, people stop seeing you as background noise and start seeing you as someone who just gets it, and they'll keep coming back. Not because of what you said, but because of how you made them feel. That's the power of listening. That's the power of silent attraction. You don't need a mouthful of words to make a powerful connection. One of the most underestimated yet deeply magnetic habits you can develop is purposeful eye contact. Not the kind that feels forced or awkward. I'm talking about the kind that's calm, grounded, and intentional. The kind that says, I see you, I'm present, I'm not afraid of being seen either. Because that's where the real attraction happens. Not in noise, not in gestures, but in presence. You see, most people are walking through the world trying to be heard, but rarely seeing or being seen. When you lock eyes with someone, not in an aggressive or dominating way, but in a grounded, respectful way, you create a connection that words often fail to make. It tells the other person that you're confident, open, and present. It tells them you're not hiding, and in a world where most people are mentally elsewhere, distracted or disinterested, being fully present is rare. That rarity is what makes you magnetic. The key here is subtlety. You don't need to stare someone down. This isn't about intimidation or trying to appear powerful. It's about being steady. Let your eyes meet theirs for just a moment longer than what's considered comfortable. That extra second, that's where the silent message lands. That's where they feel some shift the way you look at people. Your eyes, your facial expression, your emotional composure, it tells them what you think of them and, more importantly, what you think of yourself. When your eye contact is calm and neutral, it sends a message of inner peace. When you meet someone's eyes without shrinking or needing to dominate, it says, I'm enough. I'm not performing, I'm just here. That alone changes how people respond to you. We've all seen the person who enters a room and doesn't say much but somehow commands attention. Often it's because they know how to look at people. They don't avoid eye contact. They don't look through people. They look into people with curiosity and calm. They don't fidget. They don't check their phone every few seconds. They engage with their eyes. That's how they create emotional gravity. They don't have to be the loudest in the room because their presence speaks for itself. It also builds trust. When your eye contact is consistent, not darting around or restless, you come across as secure. People trust those who appear steady. It doesn't matter how good your words are. If your eyes are shifting or avoiding, the subconscious message is insecurity. But when your gaze is clear and composed, even in silence, you're saying, I can handle this moment. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of myself. That confidence expressed silently is far more attractive than any witty comeback or clever story. Now let's be real, for many people, holding eye contact feels unnatural at first. It might trigger anxiety or self-consciousness. That's okay, you're not supposed to master this overnight. It's a practice like any other. Small, hold someone's gaze a little longer when you say hello, look them in the eyes when they're speaking to you. Don't rush to respond, just listen with your eyes. Let them see that you're actually with them. That alone makes you stand out in a world full of people waiting for their turn to talk. Another piece of this is self-respect. When you carry yourself like you're worth being seen, when you stop hiding behind distraction, performance eye contact becomes easier. You're no longer afraid of what they'll see because you're not rejecting yourself anymore. That's when the real shift happens, because people mirror back what you project. When you silently say, I'm comfortable in my own skin, they relax around you. They stop judging and start trusting. That's the moment you become silently attractive. Not because of your looks, your job, or your words, but because your energy is safe and centered. You don't need approval. You don't need to be impressive. You just need to be fully present. And when you are the way you look, people will leave a deeper impression than anything you say. That's the kind of connection that doesn't fade. That's what makes someone remember you hours, days, even years later. So the next time you're in a conversation, practice this. Stay grounded. Make eye contact that isn't rushed, that doesn't flinch. Let people feel your presence without you trying to push it. When you master that, you no longer chase attention. Finds you, and the best part, you didn't even have to say a word. When you look at people who have that calm, magnetic energy, the kind that makes others trust them, respect them, and feel safe around them, you're not looking at someone born with it. You're looking at someone who has learned the skill of emotional control, and that's what silently attractive people have mastered. Emotional control is not about pretending you don't feel things. It's not about being cold, distant, or robotic. It's about how you manage what you feel. It's about being able to experience anger, fear, frustration, insecurity, and still choose your response, instead of letting your emotions hijack the moment. When someone insults you or tries to trigger you, what's your first reaction? Most people lash out, defend, or retreat, but when you're emotionally in control, you understand that not everything deserves your reaction. You realize that reacting is easy, responding is where the power is. People who are silently attractive are the ones who can pause, breathe, and choose how they want to show up in that moment. They don't let their feelings dictate their behavior. That kind of self-possession is rare, and people notice it. It earns respect without ever having to ask for it. In a world full of impulsiveness, the person remains calm, becomes a rock, and guess what? Everyone gravitates toward the rock. When chaos hits, whether it's conflict at work, drama in a relationship, or tension in a conversation, the emotionally controlled person becomes the anchor. They don't add to the storm, they stabilize it. That's magnetic, because they're loud. Not because they dominate the room, but because their energy feels safe and solid. You know who you can count on in a storm? And people are drawn to those who make them feel safe. But emotional control isn't just for external situations. It's how you treat yourself in private too. When things don't go your way, when you feel rejected, when you feel unseen, how do you respond? Do you spiral into self-doubt? Do you attack yourself internally? Or do you learn to sit with the discomfort, process it, and keep moving forward? Silently attractive people don't suppress their emotions, but they own them. They understand that feelings are data, not directives. Just because you feel something doesn't mean it's the truth. And that understanding helps them show up with emotional maturity that others can feel even if no words are exchanged. Think about it. How often are we drawn to someone who isn't easily flustered? Someone doesn't explode under pressure or melt down over small stuff. We admire those people. Why? Because they model the kind of peace we all crave inside. When you're emotionally reactive, your energy becomes unpredictable, even unsafe. But when you're emotionally regulated, your energy becomes dependable. That's what makes it attractive, not flashy, not loud, stable. Another powerful truth about emotional control is that it creates space for better decisions. You can't make strong decisions when you're overwhelmed by emotion, and silently attractive people are usually wise, not because they're smarter, but because they give themselves that pause. They don't rush to speak or act just to soothe their ego. They understand the cost of emotional impulsivity, and they choose differently. The real test of emotional control isn't when everything is going right. It's when someone disrespects you, misunderstands you, or underestimates you. It's when you want to scream, argue, or defend yourself. But instead you breathe, you stay grounded, you let your silence speak for you. Not because you're weak, but because you don't waste your energy, proving yourself to people who've already made up their minds. That level of restraint, that's power, and people feel it. Being silently attractive doesn't mean you never express emotion. It means you express it consciously with discipline. You cry when it's real. You speak when it's necessary. You walk away when it's wise. It's not about being detached. It's about being in control of your emotional state so that no one else gets to control it for you. People won't always understand your calm. Some might misread it as indifference or arrogance. Let them. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to hold your ground, protect your peace, and lead with emotional intelligence. The veil doesn't need more noise. It needs more presence, more composure, more people who know how to feel deeply without being ruled by those feelings. You want to be silently attractive, master this one thing: emotional control. When you can be in the middle of a storm and still stand tall, when you can hear criticism and still stay centered, when you can face conflict and still speak with clarity, that's when you become unforgettable. You don't need a loud voice to lead. You just need a calm mind, a steady heart, and the discipline to respond, not react. That's silent power, that's emotional control, and that's one of the most attractive forces on earth. When you have boundaries, real ones, the kind you talk about, but the kind you live by, you become quietly irresistible. There's something incredibly magnetic about a person who knows what they will and won't accept. Someone who can say no without flinching, without apologizing, and without guilt. That's a person who values themselves. That's someone who doesn't bend to pressure just to please others. And that kind of self-respect draws people in, because deep down, everyone wishes they had it. The truth is, most people don't set boundaries because they're afraid of being rejected, afraid of seeming cold, distant, or selfish. But the irony is this: when you don't set boundaries, you become resentful, burnt out, and emotionally exhausted. Give too much too often to people who don't always deserve it. And in doing so, you lose your own identity. Silent attractiveness comes from knowing who you are and honoring that consistently. Not sometimes, not only when it's easy, but all the time. Think about someone who says, "I won't tolerate being disrespected," and means it. They don't scream it. They don't make dramatic speeches about it, but you can feel it in the way they carry themselves. They don't chase, they don't beg, they don't entertain confusion or inconsistency. If someone crosses a line, they address it or step back calmly and clearly. There's no chaos, just clarity. That kind of behavior, it's rare, makes people think twice. It commands respect without ever needing to demand it. Boundaries also create space for others to respect you. When you say yes to everything, when you make yourself constantly available, when you allow people to overstep you, teach them that your time and energy are up for grabs. And eventually they stop valuing you, not because they're bad people, but because you've unintentionally shown them that you don't value yourself. But the moment you shift that, the moment you start protecting your peace, your time, your energy, the entire dynamic changes. People start noticing, they listen more closely when you speak, they appreciate your presence more because it's no longer a given, it's a gift. Being silent attractive is about restraint. It's about not explaining yourself every time you draw a line. You don't need to over-justify why you need space. Why you're not available or why something doesn't sit right with you, no is a full sentence. And when you get comfortable using it, you move differently. You show people that you've done the inner work, that you're not operating from a place of desperation, that you're grounded. And that grounded energy that makes people curious. It makes them respect you. It makes them feel safe around you because they know you won't fake your feelings just to keep the peace. You also attract different kinds of relationships, better ones, more honest ones, because when your boundaries are clear, you repel people who want to use you and attract people who value you. You stop settling for half-effort connections and start gravitating toward mutual respect, and you no longer need to over-explain what you're looking for. Your energy communicates it for you. You no longer need to chase validation, and your self-worth speaks volumes before you ever open your mouth. Boundaries aren't about being guarded. They're about being wise. You're not building walls. You're setting gates. You're saying, I welcome people into my life, but only if they walk in with respect. And that isn't being cold. That's being conscious. That's being silently powerful. You know what's more attractive than someone who tries to be liked by everyone? Someone who's okay not being liked at all, especially if it means being true to themselves. That's strength. That's depth. And it's rare in a world full of approval chasers and people pleasers. It's not about being rude or distant. It's about being selective with your time, your energy, your emotional investment. The moment you start setting and honoring your boundaries, people around you will feel the shift. Some will resist it, especially if they benefit from your lack of them. But the right ones, they'll respect you more, they'll match your energy, they'll show up better, and the best part is you won't have to force any of it. You won't have to beg or convince anyone to treat you well, they'll just know, and that is silent attraction in its purest form. It's the quiet strength of someone who knows who they are, who's done the work, who doesn't settle, and who's willing to walk away when something doesn't align with their values. That's not just attractive, it's unforgettable. When you think of attraction, the first thing that comes to mind probably isn't silence. But the most magnetic people aren't the loudest, they're not the ones who dominate the conversation, overshare their opinions, or get defensive when they're challenged. The truth is, one of the most silently attractive habits is the ability to stay calm and composed, especially in situations where most people would explode. That's the power of non-reactivity. Non-reactivity isn't about being numb or cold. It's about being emotionally grounded. It means you've reached a point in your personal growth where you no longer give people power to control your internal state. You're not living at the mercy of external drama, and in a world where everyone is triggered, where emotions are flaring and people are constantly on edge, someone who can stay centered is rare. And rare is attractive. People can feel when you're unshakable. You become a calming presence in a chaotic world. You become a safe space without even trying. This doesn't mean you allow disrespect or suppress your emotions. It means you've developed the self-awareness and discipline to pause, process, and respond rather than react impulsively. You're not walking around handing your peace over to people who don't deserve that kind of access to you. Think about the last time someone said something that offended you. Maybe they questioned your value, criticized your choices, or dismissed your efforts. Now ask yourself, did you react emotionally, or did you take a step back? Because when you're reactive, you give them control. You hand over your energy like it's nothing. But when you're non-reactive, when you pause, breathe, and stay calm, you silently say, I am not available for chat. I am not here to match your insecurity. I am grounded in who I am. And that level of emotional maturity, people notice it. It's not flashy, but it's unforgettable. It's what makes someone look at you and wonder, how do they stay so composed? It's what makes people trust you. It's what earns you quiet respect, especially from those who don't even know how to name what they're feeling when they're around you. There's also power in restraint. When you don't react to every little thing, you show that you don't need to defend yourself all the time, that you're confident in your worth, that you don't argue with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. This is silent strength. It's what makes your presence magnetic. You don't get pulled into gossip. You don't lash out when you're uncomfortable. You stay centered, and that makes people feel like they can't rattle you. And that energy that's rare, non-reactivity, also gives you clarity when you're not clouded by immediate emotional responses. You can actually think. You can observe what's really going on, assess the situation from a position of strength, and then choose your response with precision. That's not weakness, that's power. Because anyone can scream, anyone can get defensive. Anyone can react, but very few people have the discipline to be quiet when it matters most and respond with purpose instead of ego. And here's where it gets real. People test you. They test your boundaries, your patience, and your emotional control. They want to see if they can knock you off your center, because that's how most people operate. They thrive off reactions. And when you give them nothing to work with, when you hold your frame and stay calm, they don't know what to do with you. That mystery, that composure, it's compelling. It's the silent language of someone who knows their worth and doesn't need to argue about it. The world is loud. People are quick to judge, quick to attack, quick to assume. And the person who stands out is the one who doesn't flinch, who doesn't crumble, who doesn't engage in emotional warfare over every opinion thrown their way. That's how you become silently attractive, by learning how to master yourself in moments when others lose control. So the next time you're triggered, pause. The next time someone tries to bait you into a fight, walk away. The next time you feel the urge to clap back just to prove a point, ask yourself, do I really want to give this person that much control over my peace? Because when you learn to stay rooted in your power, when you choose calm over chaos and purpose over impulse, you become the kind of person who doesn't need to speak loudly to be respected. You are the message, and people feel it without you saying a word. When you speak less but say more, something shifts in how people perceive you. It's not about withholding words to appear mysterious. It's about learning the discipline of speaking with intention. Most people talk to fill silence. They ramble, over-explain, and rush to say something just to avoid feeling awkward. But here's what's really happening. They're leaking power. Because when every word has weight, people lean in. They notice, they listen. Imagine this. You're in a room where someone dominates. The conversation is loud, animated, trying hard to impress. Then there's another person sitting calmly, listening, observing, saying very little, but when they finally speak, everyone stops to hear what they have to say. That's not magic, that's intentional energy, that's knowing your words matter, that's to being comfortable with silence, and most importantly, that's understanding that presence speaks louder than performance. We live in a world where people are addicted to noise, social media conversations, meetings. It's all about who's talking the most, who's the most entertaining, who's the most opinionated, but true influence doesn't work that way. The people who move us the most are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who speak with precision. They don't talk to hear themselves. They talk when they have something valuable to say. You become silently attractive when you remove the need to explain yourself all the time. You stop justifying your opinions. You stop oversharing. You stop chasing validation through your words, and you start sitting in your truth. That doesn't mean you don't express yourself. It means you express yourself only when necessary. And when you do, it lands with impact. Silence is not empty. It's full of, and when you embrace it, you force others to lean into your energy. It's the pause before the words that creates anticipation. It's the restraint that builds respect. This doesn't mean being passive or shrinking yourself. In fact, it's the opposite. It takes massive strength to be still. It takes deep self-worth to not always have the last word. When you choose your words carefully, people understand that you're not speaking to impress them. You're speaking because you mean it, because you thought about it, because what you're about to say carries weight. Silent attractiveness also means being comfortable, not correcting everyone. You don't have to jump into every debate. You don't have to prove you're right. You let your actions speak for you. You let your presence carry your message. In doing that, you earn trust. People feel safe around those who speak with clarity, not with chaos. There's also something deep, magnetic about a person who listens more than they talk, because listening is not silence, it's engagement. It shows you value others. It shows you're confident enough to hold space without needing to fill it with your own voice. And ironically, by being the one who listens, you become the one everyone wants to speak to. When you stop talking to fill the silence, you give people the gift of your attention. That alone is attractive. In a world starving for real connection, a calm and grounded presence is rare. It's felt about inner discipline. It's about being so in tune with your own worth that you no longer try to prove it externally. Your words become fewer, your impact becomes greater, and your silence, intentional, calm, confident silence becomes your superpower. So the next time you're tempted to over-explain, to keep talking just to avoid discomfort, stop, pause, ask yourself, do I need to say this, or am I saying this to feel seen? Because the truth is, the most silently attractive people already know they're seen even when they're quiet. And that's what makes them unforgettable.